Good afternoon, guys. Today I'm going to show you how to change the rear lower control arm for the 2013 Lincoln MKZ. Currently this control arm needs to be replaced as the bushing here is torn. Some may say, well, why replace the entire control arm where it's not rusted? It's actually still okay. Well, the problem is I am unable to find a bushing for this control arm. I can find all the other bushings where they are sitting, but not this particular one. So I'll go ahead and show you the newest one. This particular bushing, for whatever reason, I cannot find it. This is the new control arm for the driver's side. Today I'll be replacing both driver and passenger side. So here goes the part number. We have DG9Z5500C. Once again, this is for the driver's side, brand new rear lower control arm. So the first thing that we're going to do is get our trusty WD-40. You can also use PB Blaster if necessary. The reason why we're using WD-40 is because some of the bolts may have seized through time. Once again, this is a 2013 Lincoln MKZ, and currently we're in the year of 2020. So go ahead and blast wherever you'll be releasing the bolts. Right in there, over there, anywhere you can see where you'll be disconnecting certain things. I've already blasted it earlier just so I can lube it up beforehand, but we're going to do it one more time just to ensure that we don't have any problems. Also below. So we're going to let that sit. Once again, this is a 2013 Lincoln MKZ, and this could also be the same for instructions for the Ford Fusion as well. Alright guys, the first thing that we're going to do is we need to remove the rear suspension height sensor, which is right here. The rear suspension height sensor must be disconnected from the lower control arm, which is this one. We'll remove this. This is a 10mm bolt right here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and position the rear height sensor arm bracket aside. Just like that. We need to support the rear suspension to ride height. So we're going to use this jack and place it right underneath the lower control arm. What we're going to do is we're going to go below and remove the two rear shock absorber lower bolts. Right here and right there. Two lower shock absorber bolts are 15mm bolts. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go underneath and go ahead and remove them. Alright, place your bolts aside. Alright, next up we're going to remove the lower arm vertical link, which is right here, to lower arm bolts. This is an 18mm bolt, so we have our 18mm socket on hand. And you can remove the remaining portion by hand. Alright, brace yourself. There we go. Place this aside. Next, we're going to remove the toe link to wheel knuckle bolt and the flag nut, which is on the other side. That's the flag nut. This is just a 15mm socket and bolt, so we'll go ahead and use that and remove it. There you go. You see how the flag nut just falls off by itself? I didn't need to brace it with any wrench at the end. There we go. Easy. Next step, we're going to go ahead and remove the stabilizer bar link lower nut and position the stabilizer bar link aside. This is an 18mm socket and bolt. Alright, position it aside, just like that. Alright, we're going to go ahead and remove the lower arm to wheel knuckle bolt and position aside the wheel knuckle. This is a 21mm bolt. Easy peasy. Pretty good. Next up, we're going to go ahead and remove the forward lower arm to subframe bolt. This is the big daddy of them all. This is 24 millimeters. Let's do it. Keep in mind, this doesn't have enough clearance for my impact wrench because of this bar there. So we're just going to go ahead and start with the breaker bar and hit it really nicely. Let's go. All right, to properly get this one out, 24 millimeters, you gotta lower the suspension arm just a tad bit because there's not enough clearance right here, as you can see. So you will have to bring it down just a tad bit, then you can compress it right back when you're done. There we go. Okay, at this time, the spring is still supposed to be supported, okay? Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove the rearward lower arm to subframe bolt and remove the lower arm. So this is a 24 millimeter as well. Okay, this time we can go ahead and lower the jack slowly and remove the lower control arm. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Slowly, slowly, slowly. So I went ahead and supported the spring by using this bungee. They want you to use metal on metal, but it's okay. Just go ahead and use a bungee cord. This way this can hang freely, and then you can go ahead and remove the actual lower control arm. Just jimmy it out. Watch your fingers. Lift up, and then it comes up. There we go. Get a little side view here. A lot of jimmying. That's it. Time for a comparison. So this is our older lower control arm and this is the newer one. As you can see here, this was causing a lot of chattering because it was just hitting every single time it went over a bump. Look how loose this is. It may not be frayed, but it's very loose. So you say, well, what's wrong with a little play? Well, it's a lot of play. Just hitting. Look at this. Same amount of force and it's not moving an inch, not 1 inch. You see that? Can't even move it at all. Look at this. This right here is toast. This needs to go. And there's no particular bushings for this right here either. So I had to replace the entire lower control arm. Time to reinstall this lower control arm. Make sure the lower arm spring seat is seated properly. As you see, there's a little nudge right there. You're just going to get it, place it in here, and just turn clockwise until it stops. And that is it. As you can see, it cannot go anymore because there's like a nudge right there that stops it from going from here and from here, like that. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to position the lower arm and install the rearward lower arm to subframe bolt. So this is it right here, right in there. We're going to finger tighten it. In order to completely install this spring, what we're going to do is remove these two bolts for the subframe. We have one here and one here. All right, these are 24 millimeters, but I cannot take this particular subframe down because of this plastic brace. So what I'm going to do is go underneath and show you a T30 Torx bit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. There you go. So we're going to set the screw aside, pull this down. Oh man, my eyes. Sand in my mouth. And this will allow me to use the 24 millimeters I need to remove and put the subframe down. This will allow more space for this to come down, which will allow me just to go ahead and put the screen back up and press it up with the jack in order to seat it properly. Now that the lower arm spring is seated properly, you want to definitely make sure that the rearward lower arm to subframe bolt is finger tightened. And after you finger tighten that one, at this stage, you're going to ensure that the forward lower arm to subframe bolt right here is also finger tightened. As you can see, it's not tightened all the way. Okay, next up, we're going to go ahead and position the wheel knuckle and install the lower arm to wheel knuckle bolt. That's it right here. As you can see, I color coded it green to green. We're not going to torque it down at this point because we want to ensure that all the suspension is loaded to the proper ride height first before we torque it. So what we'll do is just install it and then leave it like that and torque everything down towards the end. All right, let's do it. Next, we're going to go ahead and position the stabilizer bar link and install the stabilizer bar link lower nut. $18 millimeters. Next, we're going to go ahead and install the toe link to wheel knuckle bolt and flag nut. Next, we're going to install the lower arm vertical link to lower arm bolt. This is an 18 millimeter bolt. I color coded it blue to blue. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and support the rear suspension to ride height. I have my floor jack right below the lower control arm. So from there, what I'm going to do is tighten suspension bushings, fasteners with the suspension loaded or with the weight of the vehicle resting on the wheels and tires, but currently of course it's not on the wheels and tires. Otherwise, without doing this, incorrect clamp load and bushing damage may occur. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and load the suspension with this floor jack here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the rearward lower arm to subframe bolt to 166 foot-pounds. That is that one right down there. That's the highest that my torque can go to. It's 150, so it won't go anymore. So that's good enough. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten the forward lower arm to subframe bolt. Once again, this will be 166 foot-pounds. Next, we're going to go ahead and tighten the lower arm to wheel knuckle bolt to 184 foot-pounds. This is a 21 millimeter socket. Once again, my torque wrench only goes up to 150. I can definitely get it to 160, but really no more than that. Yep. Alright, that should be 184 foot-pounds right there. With the suspension still loaded, now it's time to tighten the stabilizer bar link and the lower nut. Once this is completely tightened, it's going to be torqued to 76 foot-pounds. This is an 18 millimeter socket. .76 foot-pounds. Next, we're going to go ahead and tighten the lower arm vertical link to lower arm bolt. This is going to be 129 foot-pounds, and this is going to be an 18 millimeter socket. you go, 129 foot-pounds. Next, we're gonna tighten the toe link to lower arm bolt right here, and this is 76 foot-pounds. And we'll be using a 15mm socket. Go ahead and reinstall these 24mm subframe bolts. Okay, no particular torque spec, just go ahead and tighten them as hard as you can. Now it's time to install the rear shock absorber lower bolts. Right down here, we're going to place this right into here and line it up. Now that the two shock absorber lower bolts are now connected and torqued down, we're going to go ahead and install the 3 rear shock absorber wire harness retaining clips. Okay, we have one here for one. Let's go ahead and do it right now. This is one. This is 2 and 3. Take note of this particular section here, bend it, and you're gonna go all the way right here and push in, just like that. The very last thing that we're going to do, we're gonna go ahead and reposition the rear height sensor arm bracket bolt and position the rear height sensor arm bracket into its place and bolt it down. Just tighten it as tight as you can, and that is it. And that is the last thing we're gonna do before we actually put the wheel on and lower the car, and then you're done.